Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome back to Rob Motive JT. Out here cruising around once again in the Jeep Gladiator, and I've been thinking, is the Jeep Gladiator really unreliable, or is it just quirky? Does it have a few little traits that are maybe annoying, but not necessarily unreliable? So let's talk about that a little bit. I'm going to start off with one of the quirkiest things about the Jeep Gladiator, about Jeep in general, I think Mopar in general, and that is the radio. Every Jeep that I've had, and those are, I think, the only Mopar, no, even the Ram. Every Jeep Gladiator, Jeep Wrangler, and Ram product that I've had does this with the radio, and that is the black screen. It happened to me the first time, a long time ago, in the Wrangler. I was driving around, or actually started the truck up, and shortly after that, the radio went black. And I'm like, oh no, now I'm going to have to go sit at the dealer. They're going to pull the radio, maybe replace it. Who knows, whatever. Warranty's great until you have to sit at the dealership for 3 or 4 hours waiting for the work to be done, right? So I had turned the car off. It was a Wrangler. Turned it off, turned it back on. Radio came back up, no problem. Never had another issue with it. So down the road, let's fast forward. I've had several other Mopar products, and every one of them has done the same thing at one point or another. It did it in this one most recently. It also did it in my Ram that I had most recently. What it did, same thing. I started it up. I was driving along. A little different this time, though, in this Jeep Gladiator. It went black. And I'm like, oh, man. But I knew it was probably just a little quirk. It was a quirky thing, not an unreliability issue or a reliability issue. So sure enough, I didn't have to turn it off. Shortly thereafter, the radio came back up. And what I think it is, I think it's a reboot. I think that it's an over-the-air upgrade or addition, change, whatever, the software upgrade. Because let's face it, the radio is basically a small computer, like everything else in your Jeep Gladiator these days. So I don't believe there is any issue with that. I think it's just a quirky thing about the Jeep Gladiator. Next up, let's talk about the vibration. I've done a few videos about this. My Jeep Gladiator was vibrating. I would be in drive, sitting in a stoplight or something, and you could only feel this when you weren't moving, because obviously when you're going down the road like right now, and you can probably see a little shaking in the camera maybe, the truck's gonna vibrate, bounce around, whatever. I mean, you're riding the road, right? But at a stoplight or stop sign or in the driveway with it just running, it would vibrate. You could feel a little roughness to the engine. And I did all kinds of things to try to get rid of that. I took the intake off. I cleaned the throttle body. Seemed to be a little bit better, but I don't think it really was. I think it was just in my head. I also put some premium gas in it. All the things you try to do to avoid having to go sit at the dealership. Now, the last thing I did, and somebody had suggested this on the channel, was put a fuel cleaner in it. And what a difference that made. The vibration completely went away. Now, I had hoped that I was golden. I wouldn't have any other issues. But it seems to me that about every 2 or 3 months, you have to add some kind of fuel cleaner or injector cleaner to the truck because it's sensitive. It's quirky. I think that things in the gasoline build up, varnishes and deposits and that kind of stuff, and that you have to clean them out every once in a while. Now, my uneducated guess at that is because I believe the fuel injectors have smaller nozzles. So when they're shooting out that mist of gas that your engine is exploding to make you go, they are more prone to be clogged, if you will, or at least build up in them. And I think when you run the fuel cleaner through, obviously it cleans them out, opens up those teeny tiny little ports, and gets rid of the vibration problem. At least it seems to be working for me. I mentioned that it did come back after I did it the first time. It was about 3 months or so, something like that. I recently put some more cleaner in, and the little vibration is gone. I will say it did not get as bad this time, and it wasn't horrible. It was just one of those things that you notice. but it wasn't as bad this time as it was before, and that's probably because I went ahead and tackled the problem before more buildup occurred and it got worse. Who knows? The next thing is the auto stop or the check engine light, which is due to the auto stop feature, or more specifically, the auxiliary battery. And I have a couple of theories about that. And this is a pretty big problem. A lot of people have complained about having the same thing. I had it horribly in my first Gladiator. And keep in mind, that was the first year. I bought the first year, 2020, and experienced that problem. It never was resolved. I did take it to the dealer. Of course, I got the old, you got to bring it in when the problem's happening. Well, it wasn't consistent. So it's not like I would be on a trip somewhere or whatever, and I'm going to turn around and run to the dealer because it starts happening. Now, I believe this is a quirky thing about the Gladiator because I think it's probably due to how much you drive it. I think that little auxiliary battery, which by the way is kind of hidden underneath the fuse panel, more down in the fender area behind everything, so that it's difficult to get to. It's not like you're just going to rip it out and replace it yourself. I mean, you could, but it'd be a job. But I think it's because you have to have a lot of longer driving to keep that thing charged up. I think what happens is that when you take little trips, it doesn't stay charged, and then the system fails because that little battery is low. I think if you drive consistently for, I don't know, half hour, whatever, at highway speeds every day, that will keep that thing charged so that you don't have the issues. I think it's gotten better, by the way. I'm not hearing quite as many complaints about the new ones as I have about the older or the late model versions. So I think that Jeep has done something, but what a horrible system. I mean, a system that from the get-go had issues, quirks. I don't think it's a big problem, and it's nothing that you really have to hurry to get fixed, even though it puts that ominous check engine light on your screen. But it's annoying. Nobody wants to drive around, especially in a new vehicle, and have to stare at a check engine light on their screen. Anyway, I think that the Jeep Gladiator so far, other than those quirky things, has been very reliable for me. It's never left me stranded. I haven't really had any major issues with it. Just these little quirky things. Leave a comment. Let me know. Do you agree that the Jeep Gladiator is really not unreliable? It's just quirky. Sensitive. I'd be curious to know. Also, real quick, I do have 2 additional channels. Rob Motive, all about the Toyota Tacoma, and Mod Driven, all about the Honda Civic. Check them out, and if you're interested, why not subscribe? And while you're at it, smash the subscribe button here too. Thanks for watching. Stay safe out there. Bye.